A billionaire finds a homeless boy singing to his paralyzed daughter. One cold morning, a barefoot Jamaican boy wandered past the gates of a riverfront mansion and saw a young girl sitting motionless in her wheelchair. Her pale face was pressed against the glass, her eyes heavy with silence. Then he did something no one expected. He began to sing. Not for coins. Not for food. But to make her smile. And what happened next would change all of their lives forever. Travis Medley was one of the most successful men in America. A self-made billionaire whose software empire stretched across continents. They called him the mind of Silicon Valley even though he lived far from California, in a sprawling estate overlooking the Snake River in Idaho. His inventions changed industries, but inside his house, nothing could change the one truth he couldn't escape. His only daughter no longer laughed. Violet Medley, once a bright, musical 10-year-old who filled their home with songs and piano notes, had been left paralyzed after a skiing accident that also took her mother's life. For months, Travis tried to fight her silence with money. He hired specialists, flew her to Switzerland, to New York, to Boston, every clinic that promised hope. Every treatment failed. The laughter that once danced through the halls disappeared, leaving only the soft hum of machines and the echo of grief. Now, each morning, Violet sat by the window, staring at the garden her mother once tended, watching the world move on without her. Travis, though brilliant before the world, felt powerless inside his own home. That winter morning, as frost touched the gates, a boy appeared, thin, barefoot, and alone. His clothes were torn, his hair dusted with snow. But when he saw the lonely girl behind the glass, he smiled softly and began to sing. His voice, though young, carried warmth, the kind that spoke of faraway beaches, of sunshine and rain, of a mother's love long lost. His melody floated across the frozen lawn and into Violet's world of silence. For the first time in months, her lips curved upward. Then, a sound no one had heard in that mansion for nearly a year. Laughter. Inside, Travis froze. He turned from his computer, hardly believing it. The sound that money could not buy was back. Travis rushed to the window, expecting a miracle. And in a way, he saw one. A homeless boy singing barefoot in the snow while his daughter clapped her small, trembling hands in rhythm. But as quickly as hope rose, anger followed. Who was this boy? How had he entered his property? And why, of all things, was his broken heart stirring with something he had nearly forgotten? Hope? Before we get deeper into the story, I would love to request a little favor from you. Please hit that subscribe button, like this video, and leave a comment telling me the city where you're watching from around the world. And also, please share this story with your loved ones. Now, let's get back into the story and see what unfolds. The morning was a special one. It was the morning everything began to change, the morning when a homeless boy with nothing but a song walked into the life of a man who had everything but peace. Travis Medley's footsteps echoed through the marble hallway as he stormed toward the garden doors. Outside, sunlight glimmered against the frosted hedges, and beyond them, the sound of laughter, bright, fragile laughter, rippled through the cold air. For a heartbeat, Travis froze. That sound. That impossibly familiar sound. Violet's laughter. He dreamed of hearing it again. For months, the mansion had been filled with silence, the kind that pressed against your chest until it hurt. Yet there it was, spilling across the garden like the very music they'd both lost since the accident. But then his eyes caught the figure at the center of it. A boy. Barefoot, thin, and dressed in rags. The child stood on the edge of the frozen lawn, hands cupped to his mouth, singing with all the strength his small body could hold. His accent was thick, Jamaican, Travis realized, and his voice was raw but alive, trembling with emotion. The billionaire's jaw tightened. What was this? How had some street boy found his way past the gates, through the guards, into his private garden? He pushed open the glass doors so hard that they slammed against the walls. The sound cut through the music like a blade. Violet turned, startled. The boy stopped singing mid-verse. Travis's voice came out hard and low. "Who are you? What are you doing on my property?" The boy blinked, his chest rising and falling. I was singing, sir." "Sing?" Travis's voice sharpened. "You're trespassing. This is private land. Do you have any idea where you are?" Jamal looked down at his bare feet, his breath misting in the cold. "I didn't mean no harm, sir. You just what?" Travis snapped, stepping closer. The wind picked up, carrying the faint hum of the boy's unfinished tune through the air. Violet's hands trembled on her wheelchair. "Daddy, please," she said softly, her voice breaking through the tension. "Don't yell at him." Travis turned toward her. It was the first time she'd spoken in that tone, firm, protective, since before the accident. For a moment he didn't know what to say. "Sweetheart," he began, forcing his voice calm, "you don't understand. This boy—" "I do understand," Violet said, cutting him off. "He was singing. For me." Travis looked between them, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "For you?" Jamal nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I saw her sittin' there by the window. She looked sad. So I thought maybe, if I sang, she'd smile a little." The man of steel, the one whose words could shake boardrooms and bend billion-dollar deals, suddenly had none. He stood there, speechless, caught between anger and something far softer. The sincerity in the boy's voice stripped his frustration bare. The boy wasn't lying. He hadn't come to steal. He'd come to sing. And Violet, she was glowing. Her eyes shone in a way he hadn't seen since Elizabeth was alive. Travis's shoulders lowered a little. "You thought you could just walk in here and sing?" "I didn't walk in," Jamal said quickly. "I slipped through the gate. I know it's wrong, sir, but I couldn't just walk by. I felt like she needed a song." The words hung in the air, trembling between them. For the first time in months, the tension that ruled that house cracked. Violet's lips trembled into a smile. "Daddy," she whispered, "he made me laugh." Travis exhaled slowly, his breath clouding in the chill. His heart wanted to thank the boy. His mind wanted to call security. But his daughter's laughter, that sound he thought he'd lost forever, still echoed inside his head. Finally he said, "One song. That's all. Then you leave. Do you understand?" Jamal's eyes widened. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." He turned toward Violet, his small frame straightening as if stepping onto a grand stage. The wind picked up again, rustling the evergreens around them. Jamal took a deep breath and began to sing. It wasn't the kind of voice trained in a choir or polished by teachers. It was a street-born voice, rough, emotional, and pure. The melody carried traces of island rhythm, of a faraway home. Violet leaned forward, eyes fixed on him. The song was gentle, a lullaby half in English, half in patois. "Don't cry, little bird, the sun soon rise. The dark may come, but love never dies." His voice wove through the air, filling the cold garden with warmth. Travis stood frozen, every note tugging at something buried deep inside him. Memories of Elizabeth at the piano, humming lullabies while Violet clapped along. For a moment, time folded, and he was back there again, young, in love, with music floating through the halls. Jamal's song ended softly, like a sigh. For several seconds, no one moved. Then Violet clapped, tears running down her cheeks. "That was beautiful," she whispered. Travis blinked hard, realizing his own eyes were wet. He quickly turned away, pretending to adjust his coat. "What's your name, boy?" he asked, voice rougher than before. "Jamal, sir," the boy replied. "Jamal Bennett." "How old are you?" 11, sir." And where do you live, Jamal? The boy hesitated, looking down. Anywhere, sir. Sometimes the bus park. Sometimes under the bridge near the station. Depends where the cold don't bite too much. Travis felt his throat tighten. And your parents? Jamal's voice softened. My mama died last year. Papa, I never knew him. Violet covered her mouth. Oh. Travis's stern expression faltered. How long have you been out there alone? Jamal shrugged one shoulder. Well, I sing at the bus stop for change. Some people listen. Some don't. But when I sing, I forget hunger for a bit. Silence fell. The kind that doesn't feel empty, only heavy with understanding. Finally, Travis exhaled. Come inside. You'll eat before you leave. Jamal's eyes widened. Eat, sir? Yes, Travis said briskly. You've earned that much. Inside, the warmth hit Jamal like sunlight. He looked around at the vast marble floors, the grand staircase, the glittering chandelier that hung like a frozen waterfall. He'd never seen anything like it. Travis led him to the kitchen, where a housekeeper stared in surprise at the barefoot stranger trailing behind her employer. Mr. Medley? She whispered. Fix him something, Travis said. Soup? Bread? Anything hot? Yes, sir. As she hurried off, Travis leaned against the counter, watching Violet. She had followed in her wheelchair, her eyes never leaving Jamal. She was smiling again, truly smiling. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen that. Jamal ate quietly, whispering thank you between every spoonful. Travis crossed his arms. You sang that song for her, he said at last. Where did you learn it? Jamal smiled faintly. My mama used to sing it when I was scared. Back home, in Kingston. She said every sad heart need music like every plant needs sun. Violet nodded slowly, whispering, Your mom was smart. Jamal grinned. She was. She said music is how we talk to heaven. The room grew quiet again. Violet glanced at her father, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't look like a man made of stone. He looked human. When Jamal finished eating, he stood and adjusted the torn hem of his shirt. Thank you, sir, he said softly. For the food. For letting me sing. Travis nodded, studying him. Where will you go now? Jamal shrugged. Back to town, I guess. I sing near the bakery sometimes. They don't chase me off too quick. Something inside Travis clenched, the image of the boy sleeping under bridges while his own house had 20 empty rooms. He didn't speak that thought. Not yet. Instead, he said, You shouldn't be sneaking into private property again. You understand? Yes, sir. Violet's voice broke through, small but firm. Can he come back, Daddy? Travis turned sharply. Violet. Please, she said, her hands gripping her wheels. He makes me happy. Travis looked at her, the light in her eyes, the pink in her cheeks, the way her voice didn't tremble like before. He sighed, rubbing his temples. One song, he muttered. If he shows up again, he can sing one song. Then he leaves. That's it. Violet beamed. Jamal's grin returned, full of disbelief. Thank you, sir, the boy said quickly. Don't thank me, Travis said, voice stern but softening. Just don't make me regret it. Jamal nodded. No, sir. I won't. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the snowy hills, Travis stood at his office window overlooking the garden. His reflection stared back at him, the tired eyes of a man who'd built empires but couldn't heal his own home. From somewhere down the hall came the faint echo of Violet's laughter. He closed his eyes. It was fragile, but it was real. For months, doctors had spoken in cold, technical words: nerve regeneration, probability, stimulation response. None of them had ever mentioned music. He didn't know what to make of it. But he couldn't deny it. That boy's song had done something no medical procedure could. Outside, in the dim light of the evening, Jamal trudged back toward the city. His stomach was full, his feet numb from the cold, but his heart glowed. He replayed the afternoon in his mind. The girl's laughter, the kind man who'd fed him, the warmth of that home. As he reached the bridge where he usually slept, he tilted his head to the sky. Stars blinked faintly above the city lights. He whispered, "Thank you, Mama, for the song." Then, with a smile that refused to fade, he began to hum softly, the same lullaby he'd sung in the garden, his breath forming clouds in the freezing night. And somewhere far behind him, in a mansion on the edge of the river, a little girl was falling asleep with a melody in her heart for the first time in a very long while. The following morning began differently. There was no hum of silence pressing through the Medley mansion. Instead, faint traces of something new hung in the air, expectation. Travis noticed it the moment he came down for breakfast. Violet was already in the dining room, her small hands folded on her lap, her eyes bright in a way that startled him. She used to sleep late, avoiding mornings altogether. But now she was waiting. "Good morning, sweetheart," Travis said, surprised. "Morning, Daddy," Violet answered, voice soft but alive. She hesitated, then asked, "Do you think Jamal will come back today?" The name hit him like a spark. Travis cleared his throat, unfolding his newspaper though he wasn't reading it. "He might," he said carefully, "but he shouldn't sneak in again." "I hope he does," she said, almost in a whisper. "He makes the house feel less sad." Travis didn't reply. He kept his eyes on the paper, but her words struck something deep, something that refused to be ignored. That afternoon, Travis found himself standing by the large window overlooking the garden. The winter sun stretched long across the frosted grass. He hadn't called the boy. He hadn't planned for anything. And yet, part of him expected to see that small, thin frame appear near the hedge again. Sure enough, around 4 o'clock, movement caught his eye, a flash of brown skin and a tattered coat slipping quietly through the side path. Jamal. Travis should have been angry. He should have called security. But instead he sighed and pressed the intercom. "Johnson," he said, speaking to the head guard. "Yes, sir?" "If you see a boy near the garden gate around this time, the one who was here yesterday, let him in. He's allowed in the back garden for 2 hours." "Understood, sir." Travis hesitated, then added, "He's not to be bothered, but keep an eye out from a distance." "Yes, sir." He released the button, watching as Jamal made his way toward the lawn. Violet was already waiting near the window in her wheelchair, a blanket over her legs. When Jamal spotted her, his face broke into the brightest grin. "Afternoon, Miss Violet," he called softly, lifting a hand in greeting. Her smile lit the glass. "You came back. Couldn't leave the song half-sung, could I?" He stepped onto the grass, stamping his feet for warmth, then began to sing, a cheerful tune about sunshine and rain, the kind of melody that made the world feel lighter even when skies were gray. Violet clapped, laughing between verses. From the balcony above, Travis stood watching quietly, unseen. The sound of her laughter floated upward, soft and clear. It hit him like sunlight on ice. He didn't move, didn't speak, just listened. Jamal's voice wasn't polished. It cracked sometimes, carried unevenly on the cold wind. But there was something powerful in its imperfection, something raw and real. Each note felt honest, born from struggle and survival. Travis found himself leaning on the balcony rail, not out of suspicion this time, but curiosity. As the days passed, a gentle rhythm began to form. Every afternoon at precisely 4 o'clock, Jamal appeared through the gate, carrying nothing but his voice and a wide grin. He'd bow to the security guard, who by now simply nodded him through. In the garden, Violet waited eagerly. Some days, Jamal sang cheerful folk songs that made her laugh so hard she cried. Other days, he sang slow, soothing melodies that filled the air like prayers. Sometimes he made up songs on the spot, silly ones about her wheelchair being a race car, or about Travis being the king of code, who needed to smile more. Violet loved those. Once, she giggled so hard she almost tipped her chair. "Careful, Miss Racer," Jamal teased. "You'll be speeding past me soon." Her laughter rang through the yard like chimes in the wind. Travis began finding excuses to be home early. He told his assistant he preferred remote work. He moved meetings online. The truth was simpler. Every afternoon, he wanted to hear that sound again, his daughter's laughter. He rarely went down. Instead, he stayed on the balcony, half hidden behind the marble pillars. From there, he watched the two children, one born into wealth, the other into nothing, connected by something stronger than circumstance, music. Violet's cheeks began to regain color. Her posture grew straighter. Sometimes she tried to clap in rhythm with Jamal's songs. Sometimes she hummed softly along. Once, she even asked him to teach her the words. Her nurse, seeing the change, reported it to Dr. O'Reilly, her physical therapist. "It's remarkable," the doctor said during their next session. "She's showing increased responsiveness. Her fingers are flexing more. She's more alert, emotionally engaged." Travis frowned. "That's good news, isn't it?" "It's excellent news," O'Reilly replied, smiling. "Whatever's stimulating her, keep it up. Sometimes healing doesn't start in the body. It starts in the heart." Travis didn't respond, but his eyes softened. One late afternoon, as the sun turned gold, Jamal sang a song his mother used to hum in the markets of Kingston. The melody carried a rhythm of waves and wind, the memory of a world far warmer than this frozen garden. "Sing when you're weary, sing when you cry. Music healed a soul, lift it to the sky." Violet clapped in delight, her hair catching the light like spun gold. "You make everything sound happy," she said. Jamal laughed. "That's the trick, Miss Violet. When life gets sad, you sing louder." "Is that how you stay happy?" He shrugged. "Maybe. When you don't have much, a song's the only thing that don't leave you." Violet nodded slowly, thoughtful. "I think that's brave." "Brave?" Jamal chuckled. Just hungry and singin' through it." Travis, hidden above, smiled despite himself. The more Jamal came, the more the mansion changed. The halls no longer echoed with emptiness. Laughter replaced silence. Even the staff noticed. "Miss Violet's smiling again," whispered the cook one morning. "And Mr. Medley doesn't frown as much," said the gardener. By the third week, the entire household had grown accustomed to the boy's presence. The guards greeted him with nods. The maids left a sandwich on the back porch after every session. Still, Jamal never asked for anything. He'd sing, laugh, share his stories from the streets, and when the clock neared 6, he'd quietly thank everyone, eat what was given, and slip away into the fading light. No greed. No demands. Only gratitude. It disarmed Travis more than he wanted to admit. One afternoon, Travis couldn't resist anymore. He walked down to the garden instead of hiding above. Violet spotted him first. "Daddy," she called out. "Come listen." Jamal made up a new song. Jamal froze mid-verse, unsure whether to keep going. Travis waved a hand. "Go on, let's hear it." The boy hesitated, then smiled shyly and began again. "The river run deep, but the heart run deeper. When kindness call, you don't need no speaker." The melody was playful, with a bounce that made even Travis chuckle. When the song ended, Violet clapped with delight. "He made that one up this morning." "Impressive," Travis said, nodding at Jamal. "You've got quite the gift." Jamal rubbed the back of his neck. "Thank you, sir. Just trying to make her laugh." Travis studied him for a long moment. The torn clothes, the thin frame, the sincerity in his eyes. Then he said quietly, "You're doing more than that." Jamal blinked, unsure what he meant. "Keep singing," Travis said, turning toward the house. "You've got time before dinner." Violet grinned, and Jamal resumed, his voice filling the air with another tune. Later that evening, Travis sat alone in his study, sipping coffee while reviewing quarterly reports. But his mind wasn't on numbers. It was on the sound of that song, the warmth in it, the joy it brought his daughter. He closed the laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. How strange, he thought. A boy from the streets doing what all the doctors and specialists could not. He thought about Jamal's laughter, his humble thank yous, the way he carried himself with quiet dignity despite everything. And somewhere inside him, a crack appeared in the armor he'd built around his grief. He didn't know it yet, but the boy's songs were healing him too. The next week brought snow. The garden, once green, became a field of white. Violet insisted on still going outside, wrapped in a thick blanket while Jamal sang from beneath the oak tree. His voice carried through the cold air, soft and warm. Sometimes he sang Christmas songs with reggae rhythm, making Violet laugh so hard she almost dropped her gloves. Travis stood by the window, smiling without realizing it. He began to look forward to 4 o'clock more than any meeting or business call. It became the heartbeat of his day, the hour when joy returned. One afternoon, after a particularly spirited session, Travis caught Violet humming in the hallway as her nurse wheeled her to bed. "Sweetheart," he asked, "what are you humming?" "Jamal's song," she said with a shy smile. "The one about the river." He chuckled softly. "You've memorized it?" "Every word." She tilted her head. "He says if I sing enough, I'll get strong again." Travis's smile faded to something tender. Maybe he's right. A week later, Dr. O'Reilly came for Violet's routine checkup. "Good afternoon, young lady," he greeted cheerfully. "How are we feeling today?" Violet beamed. "I think I'm stronger." Travis watched as the doctor examined her legs and hands. "Well, I'll be," O'Reilly murmured. "She's right." "What do you mean?" Travis asked quickly. "Look," the doctor said, gesturing to Violet's fingers. "She's regaining tone. There's visible twitch response, small, but it's there. This kind of progress usually takes months, if it happens at all." Violet gasped softly. "Really?" "Really," O'Reilly said, smiling. "Whatever you're doing, keep it going. Whatever's motivating her, it's working." Travis glanced at his daughter, who only grinned and whispered one word, "Jamal." The doctor chuckled. "Then Jamal's doing God's work." That night, long after Violet had gone to sleep, Travis stepped outside into the quiet garden. Snow crunched under his shoes. The world was still, no singing now, no laughter. Just the whisper of wind through the trees. He stood in the spot where Jamal always sang, looking at the footprints left in the snow. For months, this garden had been nothing but a reminder of pain, of everything he'd lost. But now it had become something else. A place of healing. He looked up at the dark sky, the stars faint above the Idaho hills. His breath fogged the air. "Thank you, boy," he whispered. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even meant to be heard. But somehow, the night seemed to listen. The house that once echoed with silence now hummed softly with sound. It wasn't loud or grand. No piano melodies, no chatter of guests, no clinking of champagne glasses like in the days before the accident. The new sound was simpler, pure. It came from the garden each afternoon, a boy's voice weaving through the wind and a little girl's laughter rising to meet it. For the first time in over a year, life had found its way back into the Medley mansion. Travis noticed it one morning as he poured coffee in the kitchen. Through the window, he could hear Violet humming faintly. Not just listening anymore, humming. He froze, cup halfway to his lips. The sound was shaky but real. A few broken notes strung together like fragile glass. He set the mug down and stepped closer to the window. Violet sat near the back door, her hands resting on her lap, humming the tune Jamal had sung the day before, the reggae lullaby about sunshine after rain. "Good morning, sweetheart," Travis said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, smiling. "Morning, Daddy." That's beautiful," he said. "What song is that?" "Jamal's," she said, her voice light. "He taught me the words yesterday." Travis nodded, feeling something swell quietly in his chest, something that had been gone too long. By that afternoon, the garden had become their sanctuary. The winter had begun to ease, the snow melting into patches of damp grass. Jamal arrived as usual, his hands buried deep in the pockets of his worn coat. He greeted the guards, then Violet, who was waiting in her chair, wrapped in a lilac blanket. "Afternoon, Miss Violet," he called with a grin. "Afternoon, Jamal." She grinned back, holding a small notebook in her lap. "I wrote down the lyrics to yesterday's song." Jamal laughed, delighted. "Well now, look at you. You're gonna take my job soon, eh?" "I'm learning to sing with you," she said proudly. "Then today, we make music together," he said. And so they did. He began softly, his voice carrying that island rhythm that made even the cold Idaho wind seem warm. Violet followed tentatively, whispering the first few words, stumbling over the rhythm. But Jamal didn't correct her. He just smiled and kept singing, his tone patient, steady. Slowly, Violet found the melody. Her voice, fragile at first, began to grow steadier, lighter, until her laughter slipped into the notes. From the balcony above, Travis stood in silence, hand pressed against the railing. His throat tightened. His daughter wasn't just smiling now. She was singing. Over the next week, the progress became undeniable. Violet's therapist, Dr. O'Reilly, watched in amazement as she demonstrated improved coordination, her fingers flexing, her back straighter. "This is remarkable," he said during one of the sessions. "She's showing signs of neural reactivation. I can't explain it scientifically, but something's rewiring." Travis frowned, skeptical but curious. "You mean she's getting better?" "Better than expected," O'Reilly said with a grin. "This kind of motivation, the emotional kind, it can't be taught. It has to be felt." He looked toward the window where Violet and Jamal were laughing outside. "Whatever that boy is doing, keep it going." Travis followed his gaze. The two children were sitting side by side on the grass, Violet tapping a small rhythm on her lap while Jamal sang. For once, Travis didn't feel the need to analyze or understand. He just let it be. In the weeks that followed, he began staying home more often. He told his board members he needed time to recalibrate. The truth was simpler. He didn't want to miss a single moment of the miracle unfolding before him. He'd set up his laptop near the living room window, answering calls and reviewing contracts while listening to the faint sound of Jamal's voice outside. At first, it felt strange. This man who once lived by meetings and deadlines now rearranging his world around a boy's singing. But soon it began to feel right. The company could wait. His daughter could not. One quiet evening, long after Jamal had gone, Travis sat in the music room, a space that had been untouched since the accident. The grand piano stood by the window, its lid closed and coated in dust. A photograph rested atop it, his late wife, Claire, sitting on the bench with Violet on her lap, both smiling at the camera. He touched the frame gently. He could almost hear her voice again, soft, warm, always humming while she played. Claire used to fill this room with music. She said it made the house feel alive. Now, years later, a boy from the streets was doing the same. Travis sat down at the piano and pressed a key. It rang out, slightly out of tune but still beautiful. He played a few chords, haltingly at first, then smoother. The melody that came wasn't one he'd planned. It was something he remembered Claire playing, a gentle lullaby that once sent Violet to sleep. As he played, he felt something loosen inside him, like a frozen part of his soul beginning to thaw. For the first time in years, the music didn't hurt. It healed. The next day, as Jamal and Violet sang together, Travis joined them outside. Violet looked up, delighted. "Daddy, come listen." Travis smiled. "Only if I get to join in." Jamal laughed. "You sing too, sir?" "Not quite," Travis said, chuckling. "But I used to play piano. Maybe we can do a duet sometime." "That'd be lovely," Violet exclaimed. Jamal's grin widened. "A real family band, eh?" Travis's chest warmed at the word family. It had been a long time since anyone used it in his house without the sting of loss. As days turned to weeks, Travis and Jamal began to talk more. It started casually, small comments about the garden or the weather. But one afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the children's singing faded into quiet, Travis sat beside Jamal on the garden bench. "You've been coming here almost every day," Travis said. "Don't you have school?" Jamal looked down. "No, sir. I did back home in Jamaica. But when my mama and I came here, things changed." Travis waited, not wanting to interrupt. Jamal's eyes drifted toward the river that ran beyond the estate. "We came on a boat. She said America would give us new chances. But when we reached, she got sick. Real bad." He swallowed. "She passed before we found any family." Travis felt the weight of those words settle between them. "How old were you?" "'Bout 9. "And since then?" Jamal shrugged. "I stay where I can. Sing when I can. People sometimes give me coins. Sometimes they don't. But I sing anyway. Mama used to say, 'Jamal, when you sing, you're still alive.' So I keep singing." Travis looked at him, silent for a long time. Then, quietly, he said, "Your mother was a wise woman." Jamal nodded. "She liked songs about faith. Said music don't just reach ears, it reach hearts." Travis glanced toward the house, where Violet was visible through the window, smiling as she watched them. "Seems she was right." Jamal smiled faintly. "Maybe she sent me here, sir. Maybe she wanted me to sing for Violet." For a moment, neither spoke. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint echo of music. Later that evening, Violet asked Travis a question that made him pause. "Daddy," she said, twirling a strand of her hair, "do you think Jamal is my friend?" Travis smiled. "Of course he is." "Then I want to call him my singing friend," she said proudly. "Because he sings and I laugh, and that's what friends do." Travis nodded, trying to hide the emotion rising in his throat. "That sounds perfect." Over the next few days, Violet's humming grew bolder. She began to sing small sections on her own when Jamal wasn't around. The staff would pass her room and hear her gentle voice drifting through the hall. Sometimes it was soft and sweet. Sometimes it cracked mid-note and she'd giggle at herself. But always, it filled the mansion with life. Travis couldn't remember the last time the house had felt so alive. One Friday afternoon, after an especially joyful session, Travis invited Jamal to stay for dinner. "Come on in," he said. "It's getting cold and you've earned a meal." Jamal hesitated at the threshold. "Inside, sir." "Of course. You're our guest." The boy stepped in nervously, glancing around the grand hallway, his bare feet leaving faint marks on the marble floor. "Wow," he whispered. "Your house bigger than the whole street where I used to live." Travis smiled slightly. "It's just a house." It feels empty without music. Jamal looked up at him. Not empty anymore, sir. Violet giggled from her chair. See, Daddy? Jamal says so too. Dinner that night was warm, filled with laughter and stories. Jamal spoke about his mother's island songs and how he learned to sing by mimicking market sellers. Violet shared stories about her mom and her piano lessons. At one point, Jamal said, "I think your mama and mine would have been good friends." Travis's heart clenched, but not from pain this time. From gratitude. After dinner, Travis stood by the garden window, watching as Jamal prepared to leave. "Thank you for the meal, sir," Jamal said, adjusting his coat. "You don't have to." "You earned it," Travis interrupted gently. "And Jamal?" "Yes, sir. I want you to keep coming. Not just to sing. To be here. You make this house feel human again." Jamal blinked, his voice soft. "Thank you, sir." Travis nodded once, his tone steady but filled with meaning. "And thank you." Later that night, after Violet had gone to bed, Travis walked through the quiet halls of the mansion. He paused outside her door. From inside came the faintest sound, humming. The same lullaby Claire once sang. He closed his eyes. For a moment, he could almost see his wife sitting there, her hands on the piano keys, her voice floating through the air. He realized, suddenly and deeply, that the boy who had wandered in barefoot and hungry had done something no doctor, no therapist, no amount of money could do. He'd brought life back to his home. And somehow, in the middle of that miracle, he'd brought life back to Travis too. That night, as Travis turned off the lights and glanced once more toward the garden, he whispered the same words he'd said before, but this time with a trembling smile. "Thank you, boy." He didn't know if Jamal could hear him, but he had a feeling the music had already carried it where it needed to go. The night was heavy with frost. A hush had fallen over the Medley estate, the kind of deep, frozen silence that comes when even the river slows its song beneath a skin of ice. The stars hung low above Idaho, sharp and glittering, like scattered shards of glass in a dark bowl. Inside the mansion, every fireplace burned low. Every light was dim. Only one room remained awake, Travis Medley's study. He sat by the window, the blue glow of his laptop painting lines under his tired eyes. The clock read 1:07 a.m. He'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for half an hour, pretending to work, unable to stop his thoughts from drifting back to the garden. The house was different now, warmer, fuller. Violet laughed again. She sang, sometimes even before breakfast. She'd begun moving her fingers, lifting her arms a little higher each day. It felt like the house had a pulse again. And all of it traced back to one boy, Jamal. The name had become part of the family's rhythm. Violet said it like a song itself, though, her voice rising with joy. Every time she said it, Travis felt both gratitude and guilt. Gratitude for the life the boy had breathed into their home. Guilt for how little he truly knew about him. He'd never asked where Jamal went at night. Never thought to. The boy always smiled, always thanked them for food, and vanished before dark, like a shadow slipping into the city. But tonight, something in Travis wouldn't rest. He closed the laptop and stared at the window, where frost crept across the glass like veins. Beyond it, the world was silver with moonlight. The garden glowed faintly, the greenhouse shimmering like a crystal dome in the distance. He thought of Jamal's laughter earlier that day, of the boy's thin jacket and bare hands. The temperature had dropped below freezing. He couldn't shake the feeling, that quiet, stubborn pull in his chest. Travis grabbed his coat, stepped into his slippers, and left his room. The cold hit him like a wall the moment he stepped outside. His breath came in white clouds. The lawn crunched under his feet. The path lights led him toward the garden. Beyond the hedges, the greenhouse loomed, its glass walls fogged over, the faint glow of the moon filtering through. At first, he thought it was empty. Then he saw movement. A small bundle near the back wall, still, curled tight, half hidden beneath layers of newspaper. Travis froze. He took a few steps closer, his heart tightening. The blanket of newspaper rose and fell with slow, shallow breaths. A pair of bare feet stuck out from underneath, purple with cold. "Dear God," he whispered. He knelt down, brushing aside the paper. Jamal's face appeared, peaceful, lips slightly parted, his breath faint but steady. Travis's throat closed. The boy had found shelter here, behind his greenhouse, in the freezing dark. He touched Jamal's shoulder gently. "Jamal," he whispered. "Son, wake up." The boy stirred, groaning softly. His eyes blinked open, confused at first, then wide with panic. He scrambled upright, backing away. I'm sorry, sir," he stammered, his teeth chattering. "I didn't mean to stay here. I just needed somewhere to." Travis held up a hand. "It's all right. You're freezing." "I was gonna leave before morning," Jamal said quickly, rubbing his arms. "Didn't want no trouble." Travis could barely process it. The sight of this boy, this bright spirit who had brought his daughter back to life, huddled on the ground like a forgotten soul. "Have you been sleeping here often?" he asked quietly. Jamal hesitated. "Sometimes. It's warmest near the glass. The air don't bite as bad." Travis felt something inside him twist, an ache that went deeper than pity. "You should have said something." The boy shook his head. "Didn't want to be a bother, sir. I'm used to the cold." A silence settled between them. The wind whistled through the trees. Then Jamal said something that hit Travis like a hammer. "I sing so the night won't swallow me." Travis looked at him, stunned. "What?" Jamal's eyes glistened in the moonlight. "When it get dark and lonely, I sing. It keeps the cold out here," he touched his chest, "from reachin' in here." He smiled faintly, though his lips trembled. "Sometimes I pretend the stars are people listenin'. Makes me feel not so alone." Travis swallowed hard, unable to speak for a moment. The boy's words echoed in the emptiness around them, pure and heavy with truth. Finally, he took a deep breath and stood. "Come on." Jamal blinked. "Sir? You're not spending another night out here." Travis extended a hand. "You're coming inside." The boy hesitated, glancing at the mansion in the distance, the tall windows glowing faintly gold. "Inside? I can't." "Yes, you can." Travis's tone was firm but gentle. "You belong there more than you do out here." Jamal looked down at his bare feet, unsure. "What if the guards?" "I own the guards," Travis said softly. "Come on." They walked together through the garden, their shadows stretching across the frost. Jamal's small frame shivered beside him. When they reached the back door, Travis motioned for him to step in first. The warmth hit them immediately. The hum of the heater, the faint smell of cedar wood, the golden light spilling across the floor, all of it made Jamal blink as if he'd stepped into another world. He stood frozen at the threshold, afraid to take another step. "It's okay," Travis said. "You're safe here." Jamal nodded slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, sir." Travis led him through the kitchen, opened the pantry, and pulled out a loaf of bread and a carton of milk. "Sit," he said gently. "Eat." Jamal hesitated, then obeyed. His fingers trembled as he tore into the bread, chewing carefully, like someone who didn't want to waste a single bite. Travis poured him warm milk, watching quietly. Every few seconds, the boy would glance up, as if checking whether he was truly allowed to be there. When he finished, Travis said softly, "Come with me." He led him upstairs to one of the guest rooms, a small one at the far end of the hall, simple but warm. A thick blanket lay folded at the foot of the bed. "This will be your room for now," Travis said. "It's not much, but it's better than a greenhouse. Jamal's eyes went wide. You mean, I can stay here? Travis nodded. You've done more for my daughter than I could ever repay. The least I can do is make sure you don't freeze to death outside my house. The boy's voice broke. No one ever done that for me before. Travis felt his throat tighten again. Well, he said softly, it's about time someone did. Jamal looked at the bed like it was a miracle. He ran a hand over the blanket, his eyes glistening. It's soft, he whispered. Like clouds. Travis smiled faintly. Get some rest, Jamal. He turned to leave, but Jamal's voice stopped him. Sir? Yes. Jamal looked at him, hesitant. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Travis paused at the doorway. His voice came low, heavy with truth. Because you gave my daughter something I thought I'd lost forever. You gave her back her laughter. He met the boy's eyes. And because no child should have to fight the cold alone. When Travis returned to his room, the clock read nearly 3. But for the first time in a long while, he felt at peace. He looked out the window. The greenhouse stood empty now, its frost-covered glass glinting under the moon. He imagined the small boy asleep in the warm bed upstairs, and the image filled him with quiet gratitude. The next morning, the sound of laughter woke him. He opened his door to find Violet rolling down the hallway in her chair, her hair messy, her face glowing. Daddy, she said breathlessly. He's here. Jamal's here, in our house. Travis chuckled. I see that. She stopped in front of him, eyes wide. Did you bring him in? I did. Her hands clasped together in excitement. Can he stay forever? Travis smiled gently. Let's start with breakfast, okay? In the dining room, Jamal sat awkwardly at the end of the long table, wearing one of Travis's old sweatshirts that hung loose on his thin frame. A plate of pancakes sat in front of him. He looked up as Travis entered, his expression nervous. Morning, sir. Morning, Jamal. Did you sleep well? Yes, sir, he said with a shy smile. That bed felt like heaven. Violet giggled. Told you, Daddy. He loves it here. Travis took his seat beside her. But you deserve it. They ate together, 3 people from completely different worlds, yet the table felt more like home than it ever had before. At one point, Violet leaned forward and whispered to Jamal, Now you don't have to go anywhere cold again. Jamal's eyes softened. Thanks to your daddy. Violet turned to Travis, her smile tender. See, Daddy? You're kind again. The words hit him gently, like sunlight. Kind again. He hadn't realized how long it had been since anyone described him that way. After breakfast, Travis found himself watching the 2 children from his office window. Violet sat in her chair, clapping along as Jamal sang in the garden. His voice was lighter today, warmer, freer. It wasn't the song of survival anymore. It was the song of belonging. And Travis knew, deep down, that something had shifted permanently. This wasn't charity. It was family. That evening, as the sun set and the river turned to gold, Travis stood by the window, hands in his pockets. Jamal was in the garden again, laughing with Violet, their voices echoing through the cold air. He thought about that night behind the greenhouse, the boy trembling under newspaper, whispering about singing to keep the darkness away. Travis's eyes stung as he whispered to himself, barely audible. He gave her laughter. He looked toward the children, their joy glowing against the dusk. I can give him a home. The announcement came quietly at first, no press release, no formal statement, no flash of cameras. Just a simple decision made over breakfast one bright Idaho morning. Travis Medley sat at the head of the long oak table, his coffee steaming beside a neatly folded newspaper. Violet sat across from him, cutting her pancakes into tiny squares, humming one of Jamal's songs under her breath. Jamal, as usual, sat at the far end, posture straight, trying his best to fit into a world that still felt too grand for him. He wore one of Travis's old shirts again, the sleeves rolled up so many times they nearly reached his elbows. Travis set his mug down and looked between the two children. "Violet," he said softly, "how would you feel if Jamal stayed here with us? Not just for a few nights, but for good?" Violet's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Then she gasped, her whole face lighting up. "For good? You mean he'd live here?" Travis smiled. "That's what I'm saying." She squealed, her hands clapping together. "Oh, Daddy, please say yes, Jamal." Jamal blinked, stunned. "Sir, you mean live here? In your house?" Travis nodded, his expression calm but his voice thick with emotion. "Yes. You've become part of this family already. It's time we made it official." For a long moment, Jamal didn't move. His lips parted slightly, eyes wide, as if he wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. "But I don't belong here, sir," he said at last, voice trembling. "I ain't." Violet cut in sharply, her little chin lifting. "Yes, you do. You're my music brother." The room went silent. Travis's chest tightened at her words, so innocent, yet so full of truth. He placed a steady hand on Jamal's shoulder. "You belong here, son. You gave this house its soul back. You gave my daughter her smile. That's family in my book." Jamal looked down, tears glistening on his lashes. "Thank you, sir. But I don't know what to say." Travis smiled faintly. "You don't need to say anything. Just promise me you'll keep singing." Jamal nodded, his voice soft. "Always." By that afternoon, the household buzzed with joy. The staff couldn't help smiling as Violet wheeled herself down the halls shouting, "Jamal lives here now." Even the usually reserved butler, Henry, found himself grinning as he brought extra plates to the dining room. For the first time in years, the Medley mansion didn't feel like a monument of grief. It felt like home. But the world outside their gates, as it always does, soon took notice. It began with a whisper. A local reporter caught wind of a rumor that the billionaire software magnate Travis Medley had taken in a homeless boy. Within days, headlines began popping up across Idaho news feeds. "Idaho billionaire houses homeless immigrant boy. A modern fairy tale?" Tech tycoon's unusual act of charity raises questions. From street to mansion, who is the Jamaican boy living with Travis Medley? Then the national press picked it up. Photos of Jamal walking beside Violet in the garden, taken by drones hovering illegally near the property, circulated online. Social media buzzed with speculation. Some praised Travis for compassion. Others called it a publicity stunt. And, of course, the business world began to murmur. 3 days later, Travis sat in a video conference with the board of his company, Medley Systems. Their faces appeared in neat rectangles on his screen. Investors, executives, old colleagues. "Travis," one of them began delicately, "we're hearing chatter. The media's portraying you as adopting some sort of street child. That's not typical billionaire behavior." Travis leaned back in his chair, unfazed. "Maybe that's the point." Another man frowned. "You've built a reputation for discipline, image, excellence. But this, it looks sentimental. Risky. What message are we sending to shareholders?" Travis's voice turned firm. "That we're human. That wealth means nothing if you can't use it to change a life." There was a pause. The kind of silence that always follows when someone says something inconveniently true. Then, the oldest board member, Charles, cleared his throat. "You've changed, Travis. Since the accident, you've been distant. Now, suddenly, you're different." Travis nodded. "I am different." He smiled faintly. "For the first time in a long time, I'm proud of it." Before anyone could reply, he ended the call. He sat for a long moment in the quiet office, staring at his reflection in the darkened screen. Yes, he had changed. And for once, change didn't scare him. Meanwhile, inside the house, life bloomed. Violet insisted that Jamal join her for everything: meals, movies, music sessions. She called him my music brother, so often that the staff began using it too. Every morning started with the sound of her laughter echoing through the halls. Sometimes Jamal's singing mixed with it, sometimes the soft tapping of piano keys joined in as Travis played along. The mansion had become a symphony. One afternoon, Violet rolled into the garden with a notebook. "We're writing a song today," she declared. Jamal grinned. "Oh yeah? What it about?" "Home," she said. "Because now we both have one." He laughed, the sound rich and warm. "You're the real songwriter, Miss Violet. Then you're the singer." And that's how it began. A new song, written together. Simple lyrics about hope, sunlight, and family. They sang it every evening at sunset, their voices mingling over the river breeze. Sometimes Travis would stand in the doorway, listening, his heart full. But even amid the laughter and warmth, something small and quiet lingered beneath Jamal's smile, a shadow he couldn't shake. Late at night, he would sit by the window of his new room, looking out over the garden. The stars over Idaho were bright, but they felt far away, as if they belonged to another world. He loved this place, loved Violet and Travis, but part of him couldn't believe it would last. He remembered too well what it felt like to lose everything. His mother's voice. The little shack in Jamaica where they sang before bedtime. The long nights on the docks after she died, when he sang just to keep from crying. People like him didn't get fairy tale endings. Sometimes he'd whisper softly, "Don't wake up, Jamal. Don't wake up and find it's gone." But every morning, sunlight spilled across his blanket, and the laughter downstairs reminded him it wasn't a dream. Not this time. Violet, meanwhile, was thriving. Her therapist marveled at her progress. She'd begun moving her torso more easily, even trying to push herself upright during exercises. "She's motivated like never before," the therapist told Travis. "This kind of emotional spark can literally rewire the brain. I don't know how he's doing it, but that boy, Jamal, he's her medicine." Travis smiled. "Then I'll keep the prescription filled." As spring rolled in, the garden became their favorite place. Violet and Jamal spent hours there every afternoon. Sometimes they'd sing old reggae tunes Jamal remembered from his mother. Sometimes Violet would make up silly rhymes and he'd turn them into songs. Travis often watched from the balcony, coffee in hand, the sight warming him more than the sun ever could. He found himself laughing again. Really laughing, the kind that came from deep inside. The house staff noticed too. The sharp tone he once carried when giving instructions had softened. He asked about their families. He smiled more. It was as if Jamal's voice had tuned not just Violet's spirit but his own. One weekend morning, Travis decided to take the children out to the town square for ice cream. It was Violet's first public outing in nearly a year. As they strolled down the street, Jamal pushing her wheelchair and Travis walking beside them, heads began to turn. Whispers followed. Cameras lifted. A woman gasped. "That's the Medley girl, the paralyzed one. And is that the boy from the papers?" Someone snapped a photo. Then another. Travis noticed but didn't care. He looked down at Violet and Jamal, laughing together as the ice cream melted down their fingers, and thought, let them see. If people wanted to watch, let them watch something good for once. By Monday morning, the photos had spread across social media. The headline read, "Medley's family outing, the billionaire, his daughter, and her street singer." Travis's assistant, Rachel, entered his office with a worried expression. "The PR department's going crazy," she said. "You're trending again." He looked up from his computer. For what? For smiling in public, she said dryly. Travis chuckled. Well, I suppose that's newsworthy these days. Rachel hesitated. They're calling Jamal your adopted son. He shrugged. Maybe one day. She blinked. You're not denying it? No, Travis said simply. Because maybe it's true. The days that followed were full of simple joys. Breakfasts turned into laughter-filled mornings. Violet teased Jamal about his funny accent, and he countered by teaching her Jamaican sayings that made her giggle. Wagwan, Miss Violet, he'd say, and she'd reply, Me de ya, me friend. Proud of every syllable. They played board games in the evenings. Sometimes Travis joined in, sometimes he just watched, smiling at how naturally they filled the empty spaces of the mansion. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen Violet so alive, so fiercely happy. And every time Jamal's laughter rang through the halls, Travis felt his wife's presence again, like a whisper of piano keys in another room. Still, even as happiness deepened, Jamal's quiet fear remained. One night he stood outside the garden alone, hands in his pockets, looking out over the Snake River. The moon painted the water silver. He whispered softly, Mama, if you can hear me, I don't know why this man's so kind to me. Maybe you send me here. Maybe I'm supposed to help them the way you helped me. His voice broke a little. But sometimes I feel like I don't belong nowhere. Like I'm just passing through people's lives. Behind him, Travis's voice came gently. You belong here, Jamal. Jamal turned, startled. Travis stepped forward, his expression kind. You've changed this house, he said. You've changed me. Don't ever think you don't belong. Jamal swallowed hard. Thank you, sir. I just don't want to be a burden. Travis smiled softly. You're not a burden. You're the reason we're smiling again. They stood together in silence, the river glinting in the distance, the night cool but no longer cold. But the world beyond their peace was restless. A major business magazine had picked up the story now. The headline read, Tech billionaire adopts homeless boy, altruism or midlife crisis? Emails flooded in. Some praised him. Others accused him of losing focus. Travis read a few, then closed his laptop. He didn't care. He had found something better than approval. He had found purpose. One evening, as Violet and Jamal practiced their home song by the piano, Travis joined in on the final chorus. His deep baritone wove beneath their voices, the room filling with harmony. When they finished, Violet clapped. Daddy, that was perfect. Jamal laughed. See? The medleys can sing too. Travis grinned, shaking his head. You two make me look good. Violet's smile softened. No, Daddy. You make us feel good. That night, long after they'd gone to bed, Travis sat alone by the fire. The crackle of wood filled the silence. He thought about the boy sleeping peacefully down the hall, the daughter who had rediscovered laughter, and the life that had been rebuilt from ashes. The public could judge, the investors could whisper, but none of it mattered. In this house, this home, music had replaced silence, love had replaced loss, and 2 children had replaced despair with joy. He leaned back in his chair, the glow of the fire warming his face, and whispered the words that had become his silent prayer. He gave her laughter. I gave him a home. But maybe he gave me one too. It was one of those rare Idaho afternoons when everything felt light. The snow had long melted, leaving the garden alive again, green grass glittering beneath the sunlight, the Snake River flowing lazily in the distance, its surface flashing like liquid gold. Inside the Medley mansion, laughter drifted down the halls. Violet was in her favorite spot, the garden terrace, wrapped in a pale yellow shawl, her wheelchair positioned to face the open sky. A sketchpad lay on her lap, her pencil sketching clumsy shapes of flowers and birds. Jamal sat nearby, plucking at the strings of a borrowed guitar. His voice, soft and honeyed, carried easily on the breeze. "Don't worry about a thing," he sang playfully, testing the chords. Violet looked up from her sketch and grinned. "That one. I want that song today." He chuckled. "Which one? This old Bob Marley tune?" "Yes," she said, her blue eyes sparkling. "Mom used to sing it to me before bedtime. She said it meant everything would be okay." Jamal's smile softened. "Then let's make everything okay again." He adjusted the guitar, his fingers brushing over the strings. "You ready?" Violet nodded, her heart fluttering. Jamal began to sing, slow, steady, his accent stretching the syllables into sunlight. "Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right." The words floated across the garden like a prayer. Violet closed her eyes. The melody seeped into her like warmth. Her body swayed gently, almost without her realizing it. Jamal's voice deepened on the next line, filled with soul. "Rise up this morning, smiled with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitch by my doorstep." The song reached something deep within her, a memory she hadn't touched since before the accident. Her mother's laughter, the hum of the piano, the way the sunlight had danced across their living room floor as she and her mom sang this very song together. Her throat tightened, but she didn't cry. Instead, she hummed. A faint, trembling hum that joined Jamal's voice and wrapped itself around the melody like a fragile ribbon. Jamal glanced up, smiling. "That's it, Miss Violet. Sing with me now." Violet took a shaky breath and tried to match his words. Her voice came out faint, thin as glass, but steady enough to keep going. "Sing, don't worry about a thing." The words caught in her throat. She could feel something alive, moving inside her chest. Jamal kept singing, swaying gently, his tone full of joy and quiet strength. "'Cause every little thing gonna be all right." Violet's hands trembled on the armrest of her wheelchair. Her fingers, stiff for months, twitched once. Then again. She gasped, staring down at them. "Jamal," she whispered. "Look." He paused mid-chord, his eyes widening as he saw her fingers moving, faintly, awkwardly, but undeniably alive. "Keep going, Miss Violet," he said, his voice trembling. "Keep singing." She nodded, tears filling her eyes, and continued to hum, her voice breaking into laughter and song all at once. "Rise up this morning, smiled with the rising sun." Her left hand flexed. Her right joined it. The guitar chords faltered as Jamal's voice caught. "Oh Lord," he breathed, staring at her in awe. The sunlight seemed to brighten around them, bathing the garden in gold. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, Violet's legs moved. A twitch at first, then a shiver that traveled down from her knees to her toes. "Jamal," she whispered again, panic and wonder mixing in her tone. "It's happening." Jamal dropped the guitar and knelt beside her. "Go on, girl. Feel it. You strong." She focused, her eyes burning with determination. Her lips moved in rhythm with the song's final verse. "This is my message to you." She gripped the arms of her wheelchair, her knuckles white. And then, inch by inch, she began to rise. Inside the house, Travis was reading emails in his office when he heard it. Violet's laughter, loud and ringing, cutting through the quiet like sunlight through clouds. He looked up, startled. The sound wasn't ordinary laughter. It was wild, breathless, full of disbelief. He pushed back his chair and rushed toward the garden. As he stepped outside, the world seemed to slow. Jamal was kneeling in front of the wheelchair, his eyes wide, tears streaming down his cheeks. The guitar lay forgotten in the grass. And Violet, his daughter, was standing. Her arms trembled as she braced herself against the chair, her knees shaking violently, but she was upright. Her golden hair glowed in the sun, and her face was radiant with joy. Travis froze. He couldn't breathe. "Daddy," she cried, laughter breaking through her tears. "Daddy, I felt it." His heart stopped. "You, what?" he whispered, stepping forward. "I felt it," she said again, her voice cracking with emotion. "My legs. I can feel them." She tried to take another breath, her laughter tumbling into sobs. Her knees gave out, and she collapsed back into the chair, gasping, laughing, crying all at once. Travis was already on his knees beside her. "You did it," he whispered, gripping her shoulders. "Sweetheart, you did it." He brushed the tears from her cheeks, his own vision blurring. She reached out and touched his face, her fingers trembling but alive. "Daddy," she whispered, "Jamal's song, it made me feel it again." Travis turned to the boy, still kneeling in the grass, his face wet, his chest heaving. "Jamal," he began, but his voice broke. The boy looked up, shaking his head as if he couldn't believe it either. "I don't know how, sir. I just sang." Travis placed a hand on his shoulder. "No," he said softly, his voice thick. "You didn't just sing. You healed her." The doctor arrived within an hour, breathless and bewildered. He ran his tests twice, 3 times, unable to hide his astonishment. "There's nerve response in both legs," he said finally, shaking his head. "She's not walking yet, but this is something I've never seen. It's like her body woke up." Violet beamed from her chair, still clutching Jamal's hand. "It's the music," she said simply. "He sang and I felt it." The doctor smiled gently. "Whatever it was, keep it going." Travis thanked him, but when the door closed and the doctor left, he stood there for a long moment, watching the 2 children laughing together. Something stirred deep in his chest, a feeling he hadn't allowed himself in years. That night, after dinner, the 3 of them sat in the living room. The fireplace crackled softly. The air was calm, filled with that sacred silence that follows miracles. Violet leaned her head on Jamal's shoulder, exhausted but glowing. "Do you think I'll walk again?" she asked quietly. Jamal smiled. "I think you already start." Travis sat across from them, his heart swelling. "You know," he said softly, "I used to think healing came from doctors or machines or medicine." He looked at Jamal, his voice trembling. "But maybe healing is just love in another form. A song. A laugh. A moment like this." Jamal's eyes glistened. "Music is like prayer, sir. It reaches where words can't." Travis nodded slowly, letting the words settle into him. Later, after Violet went to bed, Travis found Jamal sitting alone by the piano, his fingers idly tracing the keys. The boy looked up as Travis entered. "I didn't mean to cause a fuss, sir," he said. "It just happened. She asked me to sing." Travis smiled faintly. "Jamal, that wasn't a fuss." He walked closer. "That was a miracle." Jamal looked down, his voice quiet. "It was her strength. I just gave it a song." Travis studied him, this boy who had come from nothing, who carried light wherever he went. He placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder, his tone soft but certain. "You've healed us all, though, Jamal. You may not know how, but you have." Jamal's eyes filled again, and for a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the crackling fire and the faint echo of Violet's laughter upstairs, the sound of a family reborn. When Travis finally went to bed that night, he stood by his window for a long time, watching the moonlight spill across the garden. In the quiet, he could still hear it, the echo of the song that had changed everything. "Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right." And for the first time in years, Travis believed it. The miracle could not be contained within the walls of the Medley mansion. By morning, the news had broken. It began with whispers: the doctor who couldn't keep quiet, the nurse who mentioned it in a small-town diner, the curious neighbor who saw Violet standing with Jamal in the garden. Within days, the story spread beyond Idaho. Billionaire's paralyzed daughter walks again, thanks to a homeless boy's song. The headline was everywhere, on morning talk shows, news banners, social media feeds. Photos of Violet smiling beside Jamal, her hands resting on his shoulder, appeared in every paper. Some called it divine intervention. Others called it impossible. But everyone wanted to know more. Soon, reporters swarmed the gates of the Medley estate. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Cameramen stood in the cold, shouting questions through the iron bars. "Mr. Medley, is it true your daughter can walk again? Who is the boy? How did he heal her? Is this a publicity stunt or a miracle?" Travis had seen media storms before. He'd been a billionaire long enough to understand how quickly admiration turned into scrutiny. But this was different. This was personal. At first, he ignored them. He wanted to protect Violet, to give Jamal space to breathe. But as the noise grew louder, he realized something else. Silence could twist the truth. So he made a decision. He would speak. Not for the cameras, not for reputation, but for the truth itself. The next afternoon, the Medley estate opened its gates for the first time in over a year. A small stage was set up on the lawn, facing a crowd of journalists and photographers. The Idaho sun hung low, bright but cold. Travis stood tall at the podium, dressed simply in a navy sweater, not the polished suit the press expected. Beside him sat Violet in her wheelchair, smiling, radiant, and Jamal, dressed neatly in a white shirt, hands folded nervously in his lap. As the cameras clicked, Travis began. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I know many of you have questions about my daughter, about the boy who sang for her, and about what happened in this home." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "The truth is simple," he said. "This young man, Jamal, gave my daughter what no doctor, no therapy, no amount of money could. He gave her hope. And through that hope, she found strength again." Murmurs rippled through the reporters. Travis continued, his tone softening. "For over a year, my home was silent. My daughter didn't laugh, didn't sing, didn't believe she could ever be happy again. Then one day, a barefoot boy walked through our gates and began to sing, not for attention, not for reward, but from the heart. That song changed everything." He turned to Jamal, who looked down, shy and overwhelmed. "He came to us a stranger," Travis said, "but he has become family." Violet's small hand reached for Jamal's. "He's my brother," she said clearly, her voice ringing out over the murmurs of the press. "He gave me courage." The crowd gasped softly. Flashbulbs burst like tiny stars. Travis nodded. "You heard her. Jamal isn't just a singer. He's family. And today, I want to make that official." He turned to Jamal. "Son," he said gently, "would you let me adopt you?" Jamal froze. For a heartbeat, the entire world seemed to go still. Tears welled in his eyes. "Sir, do you mean forever?" "Forever," Travis said. "You belong with us." The boy's lips trembled. He looked at Violet, who beamed, then back at Travis. "Yes, sir. I'd be honored." Applause erupted from the crowd. Some reporters lowered their cameras, wiping their eyes. Others shouted questions, but the noise faded beneath the sound of Violet's laughter and Jamal's quiet sobs. Travis stepped forward and pulled him into an embrace. "Welcome home, son." The news spread faster than ever before. Tech billionaire adopts homeless boy after miracle recovery. A song that healed a family. From the streets to the stars, the Jamal Medley story. The world reacted in waves: admiration, skepticism, awe, and criticism. Television hosts debated it. Some praised Travis's compassion. Others called it a strategic rebrand for a grieving businessman. Comment sections filled with arguments. This gives me hope in humanity. He's exploiting that boy for attention. Miracles are real. This proves it. Through it all, Travis refused interviews beyond that one press conference. Let the story speak for itself, he told his assistant. The truth doesn't need a PR campaign. For Jamal, fame came as a shock. The first time he saw his face on TV, he nearly dropped the remote. "That's me?" he asked, laughing nervously. "Me really look like that?" Violet giggled beside him. "You look famous." He shook his head. "I don't feel famous. Just lucky." Still, he couldn't escape it. Everywhere they went, grocery stores, the park, even church, people recognized him. They wanted selfies, autographs, or to touch his shoulder as if he carried magic in his skin. Some whispered, "That's the boy who healed her." He didn't know how to handle it. He hadn't healed anyone, not really. He just sung the only way he knew how. One night, he sat with Travis in the study, staring at the fire. "Sir," he said softly, "people act like I did some big miracle. But I don't understand it. I just sang." Travis smiled gently. "Sometimes, Jamal, that's all a miracle is. Doing the right thing with love." Jamal nodded slowly, his eyes misty. "Back home, Mama used to say music is the one thing that never lies." "She was right," Travis said. "And your truth changed lives." At school, Jamal became something of a legend. The kids whispered when he walked down the halls, but Violet made sure no one treated him differently. "Don't you dare act like he's special," she scolded a classmate once, grinning as she said it. "He's my brother, not a celebrity." "Music brother," Jamal corrected, laughing. Their friendship became the heart of the town's fascination. Photos of them performing small songs at community events filled the local papers. They started a charity drive for music therapy in hospitals, the Three Little Birds Fund, and donations poured in from across the country. But for Travis, the biggest miracle wasn't the fame or the money or even Violet's recovery. It was the change within himself. He was no longer the man who hid behind his work, who drowned his grief in routine and silence. He was a father again, not just to one child, but two. He often found himself lingering in the doorway, watching Violet and Jamal play music together. Her laughter, his singing, it filled the air with something sacred. And every time he heard it, he whispered the same quiet words, "Thank you." Not everyone was kind, of course. Business acquaintances sent clipped emails questioning his mental state. One investor even warned, "You're turning your life into a tabloid. The company can't withstand this kind of personal exposure." Travis replied with a single sentence, "The company can withstand anything, because I finally can." He didn't attend board meetings as often anymore. He delegated, took afternoons off, spent his evenings cooking dinner with the children or listening to Jamal's latest song ideas. The empire he'd built no longer mattered as much as the home he was building now. Weeks later, Travis received a handwritten letter from a stranger, a mother in another state whose son had been paralyzed in an accident. "We saw your story. My son has started singing again for the first time in years. We believe in miracles again. Thank you." Travis folded the letter carefully and placed it in his desk drawer beside a photo of Claire. He whispered to the picture, "You'd have loved him, you know. You'd have loved them both." And for the first time, instead of tears, he smiled. Spring bloomed over Idaho. The garden, once a place of sorrow, was now filled with music nearly every evening. Neighbors gathered beyond the gates just to listen. The air would carry Violet's laughter, Jamal's voice, and the sound of Travis's piano drifting across the river. One night, after a small family dinner, Violet stood up from her wheelchair, slowly, carefully, and took 3 small steps toward the piano. "Daddy," she said, eyes shining, "can we sing our song again?" Travis froze, his heart swelling. "Of course, sweetheart." She nodded at Jamal. "Come on, music brother." And together they began, the song that had started it all. "Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right." Their voices mingled, tender and strong. Travis joined in on the piano, his deep chords filling the air like gratitude made sound. When the song ended, the house fell quiet, not the heavy silence of grief, but the sacred stillness of peace. Travis looked at the boy and the girl who had changed his life, and said softly, his voice breaking with emotion, "You've healed us all." The seasons rolled forward, and the Medley mansion, once a fortress of silence, had become something entirely new. Music, laughter. The great halls that had once echoed with the sound of footsteps and grief now pulsed with rhythm and song. The grand piano in the living room, long untouched, was no longer just a relic of the past, it was alive again. Most mornings began the same way, Violet's soft laughter drifting down the hallway, followed by Jamal's bright singing voice bouncing off the high ceilings. Travis would wake to the sound of 3 Little Birds or one of Jamal's new original songs, a melody that carried both innocence and faith. Violet, now 11, had learned to walk again. Not perfectly, not without effort, but she could manage short distances on her own. She still used her wheelchair sometimes, especially when she tired, but every step was a triumph, a quiet rebellion against despair. Jamal never left her side when she practiced. He'd hold her hand, humming gently, his other arm ready to steady her if she faltered. "Step small," he'd whisper in his lilting Jamaican accent, "but step sure." Every time Violet made it across the room without falling, she'd grin up at him, triumphant. "Did you see that?" He'd flash his easy, sunshine smile. "Yeah man, I see it. You get stronger every day." And in those moments, Travis would stand silently at the doorway, watching, his heart full to the brim with something that felt like peace. It began as an idea, just a passing thought one evening while Travis was reading letters from strangers who'd written after the press conference. Parents, therapists, teachers. Each story told of children who had started to sing again, smile again, move again, all because they'd seen Violet's miracle. One letter struck him the most. It came from a father in Montana who wrote, "We can't afford therapy, but we play music every night now. Our daughter hums along. Thank you for showing us hope doesn't need money." Travis folded that letter and stared at the piano for a long while. Music, he thought, was medicine. And if music could heal his daughter, it could heal others too. That night, he called a meeting with his company's board of directors. "I'm establishing a foundation," he announced. "The Medley Foundation for Music and Healing. We'll fund music therapy programs for children with disabilities, physical, emotional, neurological. Free of charge." There was a stunned silence. One executive spoke up, hesitantly. "Sir, are you sure you want to tie the company's name to something so sentimental?" Travis smiled faintly. "If compassion is bad for business," he said, "then maybe I've been in the wrong kind of business." And that was that. Within weeks, the Medley Foundation for Music and Healing was launched. The logo, a simple treble clef intertwined with a heart, was designed by Violet herself. News spread fast again, but this time the coverage was purely joyous. Children across Idaho received instruments, therapy sessions, and music workshops. Schools began writing to thank the Medleys for bringing music into classrooms that had gone silent. Jamal became the foundation symbol, the boy whose song had healed a billionaire's daughter. His photo appeared on posters beside Violet's smiling face, under the tagline, "Because every child deserves a song." Despite the attention, the medleys remained grounded. Their days fell into a comforting rhythm of ordinary joy. Violet attended school part-time, her wheelchair replaced by crutches for short distances. Jamal, now 12, went with her, excelling in both academics and music. He joined the school choir, and within weeks his teacher told Travis, "This boy has a voice that doesn't just sing, it moves people." Travis chuckled. "Yes," he said, "I know." After school, they would all return to the mansion, where the afternoons filled with sound. Sometimes, Violet played piano while Jamal sang. Other times, they both experimented, writing little songs together about courage, friendship, and the magic of ordinary days. Their favorite was one they wrote together in the garden, "The House of Song." It began with a simple melody that Jamal strummed on his guitar, and Violet added lyrics. "Once there was silence where laughter should be. Now music has found a way home to me. A house made of echoes, of love, and of light, where hearts learn to sing again, deep in the night." Travis heard it once and couldn't stop replaying it in his head for days. Sometimes he'd pause by their open window and listen, his throat tightening as he realized how far they'd come, from brokenness to this beautiful, fragile harmony. Travis had changed more than anyone. He was no longer the cold, overworked tycoon who had once believed money could fix pain. He'd stepped back from daily operations of his company, spending more time at home, more time at schools and hospitals the foundation supported. He learned to play the guitar, badly according to Jamal, and to cook pancakes on Sunday mornings, which made Violet giggle and call him Chef Daddy. But what changed most was his heart. Every time he heard Jamal sing or saw Violet take another step, he felt his wife Claire's presence again, not as sorrow, but as warmth. He sometimes imagined her watching them from beyond, smiling as their laughter filled the house she'd once filled with piano music. He no longer avoided her memory. He invited it in. And at night, when the house quieted, he would stand in the garden, looking up at the stars, whispering, "We're doing okay now, Claire. You can rest." Fame might have overwhelmed another child, but Jamal carried it with quiet humility. He never forgot where he came from, the streets of Kingston, the nights under Idaho's bridges, the songs he sang to keep the dark away. Sometimes he would take long walks by the river, thinking about his mother. "I wish she could see this," he told Travis once. Travis smiled softly. "She does, son. Every time you sing, she hears you." Jamal looked down at the rippling water. "I think she the one who sent me here, you know? Maybe she whispered to God, 'Find that boy a home.'" Travis's voice was thick with emotion. And God listened. They stood there in silence, side by side. A man who had everything and a boy who had once had nothing, both bound by love that had rewritten their stories. Summer came again, and with it, the Medley Foundation's first annual fundraising gala, held right there at the mansion. The place sparkled with lights and laughter. Guests arrived from all over, business leaders, doctors, musicians, teachers, and families whose children had been helped by the foundation. But the heart of the evening wasn't the speeches or the money raised. It was the performance everyone had come to see. Violet and Jamal were to perform their original song, "The House of Song." Travis had been nervous all week. "You sure you're ready, sweetheart?" he asked Violet as she practiced, her crutches leaning beside the piano. She grinned. "Daddy, I've been ready my whole life." When the moment came, the lights dimmed, and the audience quieted. Violet rolled herself onto the stage, her long golden hair shimmering under the lights. Jamal followed, guitar in hand, wearing a crisp white shirt and a calm smile that masked his racing heart. Travis watched from the front row, his hands folded tightly in his lap. Jamal strummed the first chord, and Violet began to sing, her voice clear, confident, full of life. Once there was silence where laughter should be. The room stilled. Her tone was pure, like light in sound. Jamal joined in on the harmony, his warm Caribbean accent blending beautifully with her soft American one. "Now music has found a way home to me." As they sang, a screen behind them played a montage, clips of children laughing in therapy rooms, tapping drums, learning to play piano, smiling as they rediscovered joy. Travis's throat closed. He hadn't realized how powerful it would feel to see the change that had begun right here, in this house. Then came the bridge, the part Violet had written alone. And though the night was long and cold, the song was always near. It carried love I'd lost before, and brought me back right here. Her voice trembled slightly on the last note. Jamal caught her eye and gave a small nod. Together, they finished. A house made of music, of courage, of grace, where broken hearts heal in a sweet embrace. The final chord lingered in the air like a held breath. Then the audience rose to its feet. Applause thundered through the hall. People cheered, some cried openly. Travis stood too, unable to hold back the tears. He clapped until his hands ached, his vision blurred by emotion. When Violet and Jamal bowed, they turned to him. Violet smiled proudly. Jamal's eyes met his, shining. And in that instant, Travis understood the full circle of everything. The pain, the loss, the miracles. Love had rewritten their lives in a way money never could. After the event, Travis found himself standing alone at the edge of the garden, the same spot where Jamal had once sung through the gate months ago. The night was cool and clear. Crickets sang softly in the distance. The mansion glowed warmly behind him, not cold and grand anymore, but alive. He could still hear the echoes of their duet drifting from the open windows. Violet's voice, steady and bright. Jamal's harmony, deep and soulful. The sound rose into the night like a prayer, a song for those still lost, for those still hurting, for those waiting for a miracle of their own. Travis closed his eyes, smiling through his tears. "Sometimes," he whispered to the wind, "the voice that heals us doesn't come from the rich or the powerful, but from the heart of someone who has nothing except love." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows as it always did. Breakfast was filled with laughter, Violet teasing Jamal about missing a chord, Jamal pretending to protest, Travis burning the toast again. Outside the birds sang. The garden shimmered. Life, in all its ordinary beauty, had returned. The Medley Mansion, once the loneliest place in Idaho, was now something else entirely. It was the house of song. And within its walls, love would never fall silent again. Sometimes the voice that heals us doesn't come from the rich or the powerful, but from the heart of someone who has nothing except love.
Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end of this incredible story. What a journey it's been, from silence and sorrow to laughter, music, and love. The greatest lesson in this story is simple but powerful. True healing doesn't always come from money, medicine, or success. It comes from kindness, connection, and the courage to care. Sometimes the person with the least to give ends up giving the most. If this story touched your heart the way it did ours, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends and loved ones. Every share helps us bring more inspiring stories like this one to people who need a little hope in their day. We'll be back tomorrow with another powerful story you won't want to miss, so make sure to turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. And before you go, check out the previous video showing right here on your screen. Another emotional story that will remind you just how beautiful humanity can be. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep believing in love, kindness, and second chances.